Welcome to the Soul Work Podcast, a space where we dive into the journey of reconnecting with our body, our intuition, and our soul's true divine purpose. Each week, we will explore how to heal from within using body centered wisdom, somatic and holistic healing practices, and engage in soulful healing and transformative conversations that will support you on your path to wholeness. We'll uncover ways to recognize the messages our body sends us, transform old wounds, and step fully into our divine power. So, whether you're here to break free from past patterns, build resilience, or simply deepen your self awareness, this space is dedicated to your growth, your healing, and your unique soul journey. So, take a deep inhale and exhale, grab your cup of tea, get settled in, and let's do the soul work together. This is your Soul Work Podcast for your soul's work. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Soul Work Podcast. I love that. I am Love Ashley Elaine, and I'm going to be your guide as we journey through doing the soul work for our soul's work. This episode, we're going to talk about the importance of integration, right? You've done so much healing work. Let's integrate. And what exactly wholeness is? How does integration help us become whole? Are we already whole? Is it something we work towards? What is it? I think this is going to be a really dope conversation from me to you. Because my journey the last year, especially being back from Cambodia, if you are just now joining, I was in Cambodia for 7 months last year. So this year has been a lot of integrating. So I'm excited for us to talk about integration. I think it's something that we don't talk about enough. Prepare your mind, body, and soul. Get your favorite beverage. Find that comfortable posture. And let's get into this episode. Hello, my divine, beautiful souls. My name is Love Ashley Elaine, and I'm the owner of not just this podcast, but a business named AEI Studios. If you're a high achieving woman who's feeling disconnected from your true self, seeking healing, or needing clarity and direction, I have something so special for you. Join us for an exclusive 1-day retreat called Faith and Vision on December 7th. This is a very transformative experience that is designed to help you restore your vision, connect to your intuition, and realign you with your soul's purpose. So just imagine spending a whole day in a supportive environment with like-minded women, engaging in some vision coaching. We're going to share some really practical tools on just creating that internal vision board, right? We're not going to do the cutting out of pictures and all of that. We want to get real practical with how we create our life's purpose, or how we step into it, how we really create the life that we keep seeing flash in our mind, right? We're going to do some restorative and yin yoga, some guided meditations, and really connect with other like-minded women. The goal here is to really restore your vision, restore your connection to your intuition, and just invite in some beautiful holistic healing, some beautiful community, and some really good, juicy information on really tapping into your vision. What does that look like? What is your vision for your life? What is your vision for your soul business? Whether you're navigating life challenges, seeking some holistic healing, or deepening your spiritual practices, Faith and Vision is the perfect space for you. I will say spaces are limited. So, to ensure that you are a part of this intimate and very personalized experience, make sure you drop into the show notes, click on that link, and go ahead and register today. We are requiring some questions that need to be answered and a Zoom call with me one on one just to make sure that we're a great fit. Okay. I don't want anybody there that's not ready or feels intimidated, or we want to make sure that the room is filled with really good people, really like minded people, and people, women, yes, that are moving in the same direction, on the same path, and ready to do the work. There are only 10 spots, so I would jump on this quickly. If this resonates with you, like I said, go into the show notes, complete the questionnaire on the next page, and schedule your chat with me. I cannot wait to share this transformative journey with you. I will see you on December 7th. Hey, y'all. So I just wanted to put out there that I've had to change the date for our Faith and Vision event. It is now going to be February 1st, 2025. I wanted to just make sure I had everything in alignment with this event and that date came to me. So if you go and register, you'll still see December 7th. Ignore it. The event is now February 1st, 2025. I will see you in the new year. And welcome back to the Soul Work Podcast. So I wanted to tap into two words, right? Integration and wholeness. There's this thing with like healing and a healing journey where for some reason there's this belief that there's an ending to healing, and there's not, right? There's We heal so that we can understand better. We heal so that we can understand the world better. We heal so that we can experience other emotions and things in a more aligned way. We heal so that we can experience joy in a more fruitful way. We heal so that we can hear better. We heal so that we can lead better. We heal so that we can be better, right? This is not to negate the fact that we are always, as long as we are breathing and on this earth, we are always going to have something that we can work on or that we can shift. I don't want to say change, but that we can shift, right? Makes sense why healing is not like a recommendation for being on earth. And I believe that we come to this earth with our own personal experiences and lessons, things that are aligned for us, right? So if we're constantly, I don't know, I feel like social media and whatever the hype thing is with healing has been um only for like only we want to align with only the positive, right? But when you've like I mean I've been intentionally in therapy and healing and growing, right? If you've been following this podcast, if you've been listening for a while, you've heard me say that, a healing journey turns into an awareness journey. I've even written a piece on it with Harness Magazine. But I think we heal, I believe from my experience, we heal to be more aware of self and choices, decisions, thoughts, all of those things, right? So I feel like there's just been this hype around like constant brokenness. And I think what it is that we're all broken, but we're all whole, right? Two things can exist at the same time. There's experiences that we are sent here to experience because they're meant to break us open to find that wholeness, to come back to our wholeness, to come back to our truth, to come back to the way God intended for us to individually be designed so that we can be a part of our collective, right? So talk about um when we talk about wholeness, I believe that we are whole when we allow ourselves to integrate the dark experiences and the light experiences, those shadow parts of us, those dark parts of us that we all have, and those light parts of us that we all have. All of the qualities that make us who we are, right? And when we start moving away from what's good, what's bad, l- and remembering that everything is spiritual, right? So now we're looking at what is deemed the shadow, the ego, and what is deemed our frontal lobe, that frontal cortex of our being, right? What is well let me take that back. Our ego is the mind, right? So, what is deemed ego? Are we acting from ego? Are we moving from ego? Are we making decisions from ego, right? Which is all self centered. Or are we coming into making decisions from our soul? Because decisions from our soul are always going to align in the best and abundant space of our truth. And it's going to be good for the collective. When we move from ego, it's only good for us. We're only thinking about us. We're only thinking about how it's going to serve me and be good for me. We're not thinking about family. We're not thinking about friends. We're not thinking about the greater good. When we come out of ego and go into soul, we're thinking about we're not even thinking, right? We're feeling into, oh, this is good for me and my family. This is good for me and the collective. This is good for me and my friends, right? This is good for me and the work that I'm meant to put out. So I wanted to just like talk about how we integrate those shadow sides, right? And it's always the subconscious, the parts of us that we are either unaware of or the parts of us that we are aware of and don't want to bring to the forefront, right? And this is why healing is important because all of us, whether you want to admit it or not, right? All of us have moved from a very unconscious place until we've brought it to the conscious and have dealt with it. All of us have moved from an egoic place until we have brought it to the light and have dealt with it. But it's when you've become aware of it, do you make the choice of, okay, I want to change this. I want to work with it. I want to understand it. Or you just let it be and then claim, well, this is just how I am. It doesn't have to be how you are, right? We've all experienced something in life that has made us how we are. And there is a divine version of us that God intends. There is a preferred life for us that God intends. There is a preferred path for us that God intends, right? Again, y'all probably heard it all year from me if you follow me all over the place, right? That John 10:10. I believe that the thief is our ego. The thief comes steal, kill, and destroy. Our ego will kill us. It will destroy us. It will allow us to harm ourselves and harm others. But I've come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Our soul, our connection to the divine, our connection to the collective, our connection to a greater good that is not just about us. It's going to be good for us and it's going to be good for others, right? So when we're talking about wholeness, we're talking about integrating all parts of us, those shadow parts and the light, right? Um and this was big for me, like learning this more, cuz I've heard a lot about it. I even had a program called Embracing Your Divine Wholeness, and honestly, I'm going to be 100% honest, I didn't even really understand what that meant. And I was in a space where I wanted wholeness, right? I felt broken and I wanted wholeness. I felt unlovable and I wanted wholeness. I felt incapable and I wanted wholeness, right? So why not name a program that? And I actually got people signed up under it and it worked for them, right? I had a plan, curriculum, all the things. But what is it to embrace wholeness? In my opinion, in order to embrace wholeness, we have to embrace all parts of ourselves. The pain, the pleasure, the 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 ups, the downs, right? It's the yin, the yang. It's integrating it all together and seeing it as a part of the greater good for ourselves and the collective. This is where transmutation comes into play, right? When you go through something, right? I think some of us miss the go through part. Some of us just go in and stay, right? And then we allow it to be our character. We allow it to change us and make us only live in ego and live in fear and live in all of these lower vibrating places. We miss the through part. I want to go through what I'm supposed to go through so that I can transmute it and stay in my wholeness, stay in my truth, and be able to help other people come through a lot quicker, right? Hold their hand as they come through. That is part of the soul work. That is for the collective. That is also for me, right? So, I didn't know where I was going with this. So, last year, and sometimes disclaimer, sometimes I'm afraid to talk about my experience in Cambodia for several reasons. One, I feel like I've talked about it to death, but the way I'm going to talk about it is not in I have not talked about it in this way. And two, it was used against me and deemed it was used against me in so many ways, but not enough ways for me to hide it or pretend like that experience never happened. And me and my therapist talked about that, and she was like, "Girl, it was used against you because of jealousy, not because you did something wrong. You followed your soul's calling to go, and you did that, and it was the most transformative experience that you had that a lot of people do not get." She was like, "I want to hear about it, and I'm sure other people want to hear about it, right?" And I want to share it because one, it's been a year since I've been back. I got back last year, 2023, November 4th, 2023, when the shit show begun. And there's this whole year, this whole calendar year, but then also the year to date of me being back from Cambodia has been trans fucking formative, right? I'm sorry if I offended anybody saying it that way, but it has. I don't recognize who I am from before I went to Cambodia, and here is why. I went to Cambodia to teach yoga. I went as a solo trip. I went by myself. I am so grateful that I had friends that believed in me and helped pay for me to get there. I am so grateful that I had family that believed in me and were my cheerleaders and supported me in going. I am so grateful that I met the people that I met that shared this opportunity with me. I am so grateful that I had begun to trust my intuition, even though it was hard, because I knew And this is for somebody. When you say yes to something, you're going to have to say no to something else. Right. So this meant me saying yes to following my soul's calling, following what my soul was prompting me to do, and leaving something behind. And it wasn't like a true leave behind, like forget about you type thing. It was, okay, you're safe, you're good from what I thought at that moment. All these things are going to be fine. I have to go and do this, even though I didn't understand what was going to be. But God is who He is and orchestrates things the way He does for a reason, right? It was almost like God knew if I made this an opportunity for her to go teach yoga, something that she loves to do, I can get her where I need her to be so that I can do the work in her that I need her to do. Because the work that I did on myself while in Cambodia, I would have never been able to do it here. And there's moments where I was kind of like, I could have stayed here and did that. I could have stayed here and did this. No, I wouldn't have been able to. Sometimes God has to take you to a foreign land, a place unknown, to get the best version of you forward, to bring that version of you forward, to get you to see the crevices of places that you wouldn't have been able to see in the environment that harmed you, that broke you, that stifles you, that boxes you, that limits you, right? So yes, I had to go all the way around, halfway around the country, literally almost a 20-hour flight from Jersey to Cambodia with mad stops. Well, one stop. We stopped in, I had a layover. I was supposed to have a layover in San Francisco, but my flight left Jersey late. And so when we got to San Francisco, I had to like dart to the my gate, and it was me and like five other people, so it was like right on time, right? I'm never It was like you're not late, you're right on time. And even in that moment, right, like the plane ride, and it was a full moon, I just kept saying to myself, God, if this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, I need you to do something to the plane, like just turn it around, make me late to my gate. Just, I need you to show me that this is not what I'm supposed to do. And God kept showing me, this is where I need you to be. Because everything just, like the whole trip, like everything just kept falling in such perfect alignment. Even moments where I needed to speak up for myself or voice my concerns about things, see things change, right? So, and then there was a layover in Singapore. Singapore is gorgeous. I just want to let y'all know their airport is fancy. I thought I would like, it's beautiful. So, there has been, and more recently within the last 2 months, I have been having these moments where in my meditation, even in my dreams, I am back in Cambodia. Even like last night, the day of me recording this, last night, I had a dream that I went to Cambodia, that I was there. And even coming out of meditation, there's a version of me that is here, that is on the same timeline of when I was in Cambodia. Like whatever version of me I found or connected to when I was in Cambodia, I am just now, like literally a year later, meeting her again. Like I've emerged into her. What this year has been between me arriving back into the States up into this very moment of me recording this has been the death of who I was. It has been the revealing of me choosing to uproot to uproot seeds that have allowed me to grow into a certain person from from childhood traumas, from uh my parents' divorce, from um just from me giving birth, from relationships that were no longer serving me, right? That were literally not serving my highest and greatest good. The way I do business, the way I communicate, the way I'm in relationship with people, the way I'm in relationship with myself, how I show up, how I serve, right? This year has been the literal death of who I've known myself to be. This year has been the literal death of how I've known myself to move through certain patterns and cycles. So, what I've been fighting, what I've been integrating is how other people have known me and saw me, and how I am now how I've been integrating the way I am choosing to show up, right? So just something, and it's not small, but it's a smaller example in this greater death of self, boundaries, right? I've always been afraid to speak up for myself because I want to keep the peace. I want to make everybody happy. I am a recovering people pleaser. I don't want to lose relationship. I don't want to lose relationships. I want to be respectful. No, not doing none of that no more, right? The integration of me voicing my needs and my concerns and my wants and my desires and what I need to protect me, right? And still keeping my peace, right? It's now no longer about anybody else's peace but mine, but integrating using my voice and keeping peace. What does that look like, right? So I'm integrating a version of myself that is still new, and also allowing myself to keep my peace at the forefront, keep my desires, my needs at the forefront, right? While integrating this new way of setting boundaries. And it's hard because sometimes there's something at stake when you do that. But you like then core values start coming up, right? Like I've been working on that thing too, right? So integrity is a thing for me. And it's like all I have is my integrity, all I have is my truth, all I have is me, all I have is my peace. And if that means I have to lose something temporarily to keep that, then that's what it's going to have to be, right? So that is where I found my wholeness. I find my wholeness in speaking up for myself and not allowing anybody to disrupt me. I keep my wholeness by remembering my truth, my integrity, my core values, what's important to me, and what's going to allow me to stay in my divinity, what's going to allow me to stay in my wholeness, my truth, right? And be able to keep my nervous system calm, keep my thoughts in order, keep my behavior in check, and keep my energy clean and high, and stay in the frequency of who I know I am, right? Not allowing anybody to bring me back to who they want me to be, the version of them that they remember, that they could take advantage of, right? So when we talk about integration, there were like three different things that I believe from my experience like what this solo traveling has brought me now into when we talk about integration, right? Is embracing more deeper vulnerability and authenticity. Something about solo travel, especially when you're I can't really speak on solo travel in the US. I'm sure it's like the same experience, but there's something different when you're in somebody else's homeland that is very native and far from you, where there's a language barrier. You don't know the language, you got to learn the language, right? Solo travel makes you very vulnerable. Vulnerability brings authenticity. There were the first part of my trip, I didn't teach as much as I expected to, and there was a lot of vulnerability with myself that I had to have, right? There was a lot of growth that I had to have. There was a lot of things exposed to me that I needed to be witness of, right? Catch that I said witness of, not a part of, right? The first leg of my trip is where I wrote my book, Married to Trauma. It's where I allowed myself to just completely be vulnerable in all of the pain that I was ready to let go of, all of the experiences that I was ready to let go of, all of the emotions and feelings and just everything. It's almost like I feel like Cambodia was like almost like a mm, I don't want to say a grave for me, but it was definitely like a pause. It was like it was a very long intentional pause of rest. That's the like and that's why I said grave for me, right? When we allow ourselves to be fully vulnerable with ourselves, that's where we can find our true authenticity, the truth of who we are. I've said this quote before, and I remember when I heard it, it's now like almost like a mantra. Wholeness is when the truth of our being matches the way of our being. The only way you can step fully into wholeness is by allowing yourself to be vulnerable. First with self, right? The easier it is for you to be vulnerable with yourself, the easier it is for you to be vulnerable with the world around you, right? And this isn't like dropping your guard and shit, letting stuff like get into your energy. No, we still want to protect ourselves, right? But are we building walls or fences? Is there a door? Is there still like a way for us to be able to see and still have that protection, right? It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable, a lot of courage. And that's what solo travel does to you. Solo travel gives you the audacity to be brave enough to go into a foreign land where you don't know the language, you barely know what the language is, you don't know the money, and say, I'm going to do this anyway, right? You are literally stepping into an unknown. You don't know what is going to happen next, right? The beauty of that was the first place I taught, um, it's ran by it was a resort ran by the by Khmer people, and they taught me the money, they taught me the language, like the simple things that I needed to learn, how to say good morning, how to say good night. I don't remember how to say good night, but I remember how to say good morning. Aron sostai. They taught me how to count the money. They taught me what everything was worth. They taught me about the history. They taught me why no one talks about the history. They taught me about their traumas. They taught me about their joys. They taught me about their religion. They taught me, right? Because because I allowed myself to stay vulnerable and and still stay true to like the core of me that I knew was me, right? Even in the midst of like releasing everything else, it opened me up to learning more, right? And not just about myself, but about another human being, another culture, um another space, right? Where we have the same traumas, just in a different context, right? Another thing is with integration and wholeness is healing and integrating past wounds. So as we're healing, right, we want to also integrate what those wounds are. So a lot of what solo travel, my experience was, right, there were a lot of triggers that were opening me up. A lot of triggers around like loneliness and isolation, right? Because in past experiences, I've been isolated for abusive reasons, and I had to learn that whatever version of isolation God had me in, it wasn't abusive, right? And sometimes when we're talking about spirituality, religion, all of those things, if we don't do the healing work, we're going to keep seeing God as what has harmed us, right? And not know the difference between just like, for example, isolation, what that is, what that looks like, and why is it important for our spiritual self and our healing, as opposed to why it happened in certain relationships, right? So the integration of past wounds into the present is also transmutation, right? I think the best way to be able to work through that is journaling, is through meditation, and of course, like seeking a therapist to talk through those things, because sometimes those triggers can feel familiar and you might want to hurry and scurry out of like where you are. But sometimes you have to sit in it a little bit longer to actually see, oh no, this is actually working for my good, right? So allowing ourselves to integrate past experiences into the now is allowing ourselves to shift perspective on what these triggers are, right? And there's an episode I want to do on turning triggers into glimmers, that I will do later. But it's definitely like a quick thing. You don't learn it overnight. And again, but solo travel kind of makes you learn it quickly, right? Because you're in this space where it's like, okay, like all I have is me. So I have to move through this a little bit quicker because I don't know what is here. I don't know why it's here. I don't know, like if this is making sense, right? Um, What solo travel also does is it allows us to learn how to integrate pain and joy, allowing them to coexist with one another, right? Allowing us to remember that a good day is a good day, even if there's a bad moment in it, but also with that, like not assigning definition to that bad moment. I had a moment the other day, actually like a couple weeks ago, where I just like if I said to myself, if I allowed what the week has been to define me, I would be all over the place with the definitions of who I am, right? Because a good thing happened and then a not so good thing has happened, and then a high really happened and then a low happened. And it's like, if I keep defining myself by what is happening, I'm going to be all over the place. The true definition is how we move through those things, right? Not assigning what these experiences and moments, like not assigning definition of ourselves to them, but how we move through them. Right. So I don't know how I really feel about this word, but it's the first word that comes to me, resilience, right? It's like I'd rather be resilient than be labeled as like the high of what my week has been or the low of what my week has been. It's like, but how do I integrate the high and the low into the middle part, right? Wholeness is that middle part, that that hole in the middle, what we come back to remember our truth, not assigning definition of ourselves to either that high or that low, right? So when we're talking about healing and integrating past wounds, we're integrating what the experience was, how we move through it, how we move from one version of ourselves to the next through it, and what is that makeup of us today, not what does that define us today, not how does that define us today, but what is the makeup of us today. Are we still the same person from that experience? Right? Like, can you look back at that experience and say that you're still the same person? And if you are, you have like, there's still work that needs to be done, right? Solo travel, it like is so intentional with the integration of all of this that it's wild, right? And then another thing is cultivating a sense of belonging and connection. When we allow ourselves to do the integration, like allow these parts of us to integrate, then we can find authentic belonging and authentic connection because we're not hiding parts of ourselves, right? We're not diminishing parts of ourselves. And it is one thing to be honest about like your faults and your downfalls. It is another thing to be aware of them and not do anything to um work on them, right? Then there's some things that just are, right? They just are, and you just don't clash, you just don't mix and connect with those people, and that's fine, right? That's where the empathy comes into play, that's where the vulnerability comes into play, that's where the integrity comes into play, that's where our core values come into play, right? But cultivating a sense of belonging and connection, I don't think someone could properly do a solo travel trip if they weren't already a person that was authentically wanting to cultivate a sense of belonging, because there's something special about connecting to someone of another culture in their land and being um like dropping your what's the word I'm looking for? It's not humble, but just like dropping everything that you know to keep your heart and yourself open to understanding and connecting with someone else. I don't think you need solo travel to be able to do that, and I think solo travel is a gift to those that already do that. Because that is also part of the integration, right? It can allow you to integrate how you learn about other people and how you shift perspectives, right? The perspective shifting that you've allowed yourself to engage in, to see another person's point of view, to understand another person's point of view, their thought process, their traumas, their culture, how they do things, right? and not always believe that the way that you do things is the only way that something has to be done, right? So you start integrating what you learn about another person into what you know about yourself. Integration is so deep. It's so deep. It's a community builder. It's a perspective shifter. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing when you allow it to be, when you just allow it to take place. So the integration that I've been experienced this past year has been a true death of self, and allowing these parts of myself that I've always been afraid to speak out loud about, or that have been taboo about, or that I've allowed myself to be silenced over, to be free, right? The ultimate freedom that we want, we have control over, and it's the freedom to release ego, to step out of ego and back into soul, to be able to integrate those not so fun parts of us with those super fun parts of us, right? Wholeness is acceptance of who we are, the good, the bad, the ugly, and how we transmute that and still make it our light, and still work with the shadow and make it even a good thing, right? I don't believe that no one here doesn't have a shadow side. I believe that there is, everything has a shadow when the light is present. So as much as we see light in people, imagine how much shadow work they've had to do. Imagine how much integration that they've had to do to bring in whatever pain, whatever traumas, whatever depths of duality and darkness they've had to move through and be aware of and be awakened to, right? Um Now I want to read Yoga and the Dark Night of the Soul again, because this is that, right? I did a book club thing on Yoga and the Dark Night of the Soul when this was Voices of the Body. I was in Cambodia when I did that. So I would even like recommend you circle back to that. Now I want to read it again. But there's, for wholeness to be a thing, we have to know that there is more than just light. The world is whole. We experience a whole day because there is light and there is dark. It gets dark earlier now, but there is light and there is dark. So we experience a whole day. You want to experience just half the day by sitting in the light? Cool. That's for you, right? But I guarantee you, some of you are waking up in the dark and some of you are going to bed in the dark. Mm, it sounds simple, I know. Um, yeah, yeah, that's all I got. Um, Integration is important, giving ourselves that space to integrate. And how do we do that? Resting, meditating, journaling, talking with trusted friends about what you're feeling, what you're sensing, what you're experiencing. Um, I want to do an episode on timeline shifting, but I think I need to sit with that a little bit more, because integration is going to bring timeline shifting. Timeline shifting is moving and quantum leaping into a higher version of yourself. And it happens, like when it happens you don't realize it happens, but you realize it happened. um and because I've said yes to integrating all these parts of me and allowing myself to have this year of rest, allowing myself to have this year of um, deep introspection, allowing myself to bring those not so fun parts of me forward, allowing myself to be accountable in spaces where I needed to be, allowing myself to give back accountability who it belongs to, allowing myself to use my voice and set my boundaries firm and let people know I'm not playing with them, right? Allow myself to remember my peace, my joy, allow myself to not hide. I don't want to hide. I love being vulnerable. I hate when people take advantage of my vulnerability, but I love being vulnerable. I can't see myself not being vulnerable, because then my heart gets closed off and I start living in a different version that is not true and in alignment of who I know God created me to be, right? So yeah, that's all I got. Wholeness is a gift, and we have access to it. Even in healing, right? Like I said in the beginning, healing to me is moving through an awareness journey, becoming aware of self, becoming aware of behaviors, becoming aware of patterns, becoming aware of what keeps paining me, and do I need to keep engaging in that, becoming aware of our lessons, right? Getting through those and becoming aware of how we transmute that, right? Nice big inhale and exhale. I hope I said everything that I wanted to say. Yes. Faith and Vision has been moved to February 1st. I want to finish integrating this year and make sure that all things for that event align beautifully and really give you guys, you ladies, an experience that is transformative. Yeah. I love you all for free. Until next time.